Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Rabbi.
Good Tvach Shvua Tov. We're learning Mishnah Shabbos, Perek Chaf Beis, chapter 22, Mishnah Gimel, Mishnah 3. I dedicate this morning's learning memory of my mother, Ms. Shlomis Rabinowitz, Shlomis Bas Rabbi Yaakov Eliezer. Okay. Shoiver Adam es hachavis lachal hemena gregreis. A person has some kind of a container. It's a cask, a barrel, small barrel, full of figs. And this barrel is closed, and he wants to open it in order to get the figs out. In order to do that, he has to break it. So that's the way he has to break it in order to get in. It's like you got to tear a bag to open up, right? Sometimes to get into something. Here they have to break the casket in order to get in to get the figs. So the Mishnah says, Shaiver Adam es hachavis, a person can break a barrel, la'achar le'mena gregres, in order to eat the figs that are in it. Ubelvachel yiskaven la'seis kli, but only on the condition, only if he does not intend to make a utensil. Now, what's happening is like this. You've got this, like I say, you've got this container with the figs in it. It's closed. The only way to open it is to break it. Now, there is a rule that makalkel, doing an act of destruction, is not forbidden on Shabbos. Destructive acts are not, according to Torah law, prohibited on Shabbos. Even if that destructive act has a constructive purpose, it is still not forbidden according to Torah law. According to rabbinic law, it is. According to Torah law, it's not. So in this case, when you are breaking the casket, right, we're saying you're breaking it in a way that you're ruining it. Now, so according to Torah law, I'm not doing anything wrong. According to rabbinic law, although rabbinic law says I cannot destroy something for constructive purpose, if I'm doing it so that I can use it on Shabbos, then it's okay. A destructive act, just for no purpose on Shabbos, you can't do midrabanan. But if I'm doing it for the sake of Shabbos, like in this case where I want to eat the figs today on Shabbos, I'd be allowed to do it. But the Mishnah says, but only if you don't intend to make a kli, only if you don't intend to make a utensil. That means like this. So clearly, you got to make an opening, right, somewhere in this vessel to be able to take out the figs. Okay. So what would happen? What would happen is you'd have to make a hole, right? You'd have to make a hole in this cask to be able to stick your hands in and get the casket. So if you make what they call here, if you cut a rough hole in the casket, meaning not an even hole, just a smash, so to speak. So that's a destructive act and not a problem. But if, let's say, you want to make a nice, neat opening, you're not just smashing it open. You're going to cut a nice, neat opening. So what you've basically done is you've made an opening for this vessel. You have now completed this vessel. This vessel, you couldn't get into it. It was a closed vessel. Now you made a nice opening in it so that now you can take things out of it. That now adds or completes the vessel. Then already it's a problem because that's called makabapatish, putting on the final blow, making the final touches to something. By making an opening, and now you've made it, now you've added something regular, something usable, something regularly usable to the vessel, you've completed it. If you just smash an opening, so that's not called I made an opening for it. But if I make a nice neat opening, right, that's how you make a regular opening for this vessel. I've now completed it. Now that again, you could say it was complete before, but now that I've added something new to it, that's also a completion to it, because now it's open for people to be able to take the things out. And that now is forbidden on Shabbos because of makabapatish. It's considered putting on the final touches to something. So that's what it means. When you make that opening, you can make a rough opening, but not a nice, even neat opening, because that will be considered making or completing the vessel. Next, now on these casks, I don't know if in the first case we're talking about this kind of cask, but here we're going to talk about a cask that has on it. They call it a stopper, and a stopper means a clay stopper molded to the mouth of the cask. So you've got the cask, whatever it's made out of, right? And then you have this clay covering, basically. It's a cover, right? And it's molded to the mouth of the cask. Now, you could typically one way of now opening this. Now, when you put that stopper on, it's not meant to stay there forever. It's meant to take off when you need to open it up. Okay, but the first case of Mishna is like this: the einaikven megufa shel chavis. You cannot make a hole in the stopper of the barrel. Div Rabbi Yehuda. These are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. You're not taking the stopper off. You're making a hole in it. That's what you decided to do. You're making a hole in it. And it's down through the top that you're going to go ahead and now take out from what's in there. So Rabbi Yehuda says he can't do it. Why? Same thing we just said before. If you just smash it, it'd be one thing. But if you make a nice, neat hole, it'll be the same problem as we said before. However, the Chachamim say, no, you're allowed. It's different than before. Because before, now it's pretty clear, before we were not talking about a stopper. Here we're talking about a stopper. So the point is like this. The problem with making a hole, a nice, neat hole, is because I'm completing the vessel, right? I'm doing something to the vessel, didn't have an opening. I'm not making an opening for it. But in the case of a stopper, it's not like the vessel doesn't have an opening. It has an opening. The basket is the opening. And the stopper that's on top of it, right, is meant to be removed when necessary. So the stopper on top is I'm not making an opening. It has an opening. And therefore, when I go ahead and I make the hole on top, I'm not completing the kli. I'm not completing it. I'm making an opening. It has an opening already. Now, but you cannot make the hole on the side. So the way they explain it, the way I understand it is the following. So this stopper probably had some height to it. It wasn't just like this, like really, really flat thing. It had some height. It was like, the thing you pull off. It was like a cover. So it had some thickness to it, or some height to it. So it seems like this. As we said, typically the stopper was meant to come off. But sometimes a person would decide, I don't want to take the stopper off. Because if I take the whole stopper off, then rocks and dirt and everything is going to get into the barrel. So I don't want to open it up. But I got to make an opening to get the things out from. If I make the hole on top, okay, if I make the hole on top, that's not the usual way of doing it. If you want to now make some kind of a hole. The way you do it is, right, the hole on top, I'm sorry, let me back, right. So the hole on top, if you want to make now, okay, so now we're saying we said before, well, you're not making an opening because you're going to take the top off. But here we're talking about in a case where you're not taking off the top. Okay, so now but the Mishna says, the Chachamim say, you don't make it on top, make it on the side. For some reason, on top is not the normal way to do it. If you're leaving the stopper on top, you're not going to make the hole on top. Maybe because, again, you don't want if the hole on top is going to let the dirt fall in, which is the reason why you're not taking the whole top off. But on the side, meaning if we assume that there's a certain thickness to this stopper, if I make the hole on the side of the stopper, then the dirt won't come in and I'll have my way of getting in to take it. In that situation, the Chachamim say that's a problem because since you're leaving the stopper on top, right? It's not like the stopper is just a cover for the opening of the vessel. You're leaving the stopper on top. It's one with the vessel. It needs an opening. If I make the opening on the side, that means I'm making the regular way of making an opening for a stopper when I'm not taking it off. That would be considered making the vessel. That would be considered completing the vessel. So therefore, if I make it on top, the Chachamim say, then that's okay because that's not the regular way to do it. And therefore, in this case, the Chachamim say you're allowed to do it. But to do it on the side, which is the regular way of doing it, that you wouldn't be able to do. Okay, so that's why the Chachamim say that in the case where you're making a hole in the stopper, you can make a hole on top, but you can't make the hole on the side. Now, the im, haisa, 1 second here, please. Right, okay, good. The im haisa nakuva. Now, let's say it already had a hole, right? You're not making any holes. It has a hole in it. But, you want to close up the hole. You don't want to leave the hole open, especially if there's a liquid in there. Lo yitain oleha shaiva, meishum mareach. You cannot put wax on it because by doing that, you'd be smoothing. meaning smoothing, memareach, smoothing, spreading things out. Okay, so you should. So that's where you say you should not put wax over the hole, because in the process of doing so, one smooths out the wax, which is forbidden under the malacha of smoothing. One of the malachas that we have in the 39 malachas is called the memachek. Memachek really means scraping. No, scraping. Literally in the malacha, the original, the one of the 39 prohibited malachas. Memachek means you're scraping the hair off a hide to produce smooth parchment or leather. The purpose of memachek is removing the hairs to make it a smooth surface. Therefore, any act of smoothing falls under that act. So if you have wax and you smooth it out and you want to make a smooth surface, then that's the malacha of that's called memareach, smoothing. Right? You're not pulling off hairs like in memachek, but you're smoothing. Now, when you go ahead and you fill up that hole, what typically happens is, so you have a piece of wax, right? You fill up the hole with it. But you don't just leave the wax in the hole because it could fall out, right? So therefore, what do? You smooth it out so that the sides of it, so that the wax sticks to the side. That's where the Mereach problem happens. Omar Rabbi Yehuda said, Arav was the name of a place. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was there, and a case came before Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, this case, where a person went ahead and he put wax in the hole of the hole, he put wax into the hole of the barrel. But Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said, that means I fear that he may be liable a sin offering. That means I fear that he now transgressed the Torah prohibition. He may not have realized it, but he did it. And if he did it, if you transgress unintentionally a Torah prohibition, you have to bring a chatas, a sin offering, when there's the Beis Hamikdash. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said, well, now we're bringing Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai to support this idea that if you smooth out the wax, you've now done a forbidden act, a forbidden Torah act of desecrating Shabbos. What's interesting is Rabbi Yochanan said, I fear. Did he? Is he liable? Is he not liable? What do you fear? So the reason that he was fearing is because it wasn't clear if when this person put the wax into the hole, if he smoothed it out or not. Meaning that part of the story apparently wasn't clear. He was told that they put the wax in the hole. Typically, you'd be smoothing it afterwards. But it wasn't clear if he actually did it. And therefore, he said, I fear that he's liable that he has to bring a sin offering. Because probably there's a good chance he smeared it afterwards. But if he didn't, then he didn't do anything. He didn't probably accomplish it. That's not typically the way it's done. But if that's what he did, he never smoothed it, then he never desecrated Shabbos. Have a wonderful day.
Okay. Thank you, Rabbi.
Question.